Good afternoon. It's March 16th, 2006. I'm Mayo Livingston, and this afternoon Tom Bush and I, on behalf of the Southwest Georgia Regional Library, are interviewing Nelson Westbrook on his experiences in the United States Navy and the United States Army. Nelson, tell us when you joined the Navy. I believe you joined the Navy first.
Right, I joined the Navy right out of high school. This was World War II, and all of my graduating class, the men, except for about 3 or 4, joined the service. So when we went to the Rotary Club for our thing, what you're going to be doing, why, at that time, everybody stood up and said what branch of the service they were going in.
And this is 1945?
1945, that's correct.
And that was Brunswick High School. You were?
No, it was Glen Academy.
Okay.
Right.
I forgot that.
The first charge high school.
And you went, well, did y'all go together? The guys that were in the Navy?
No. I didn't go at the same time. In other words, it was various. I went. What I wound up doing was riding a bus from Brunswick to Macon, and then met up with another group, with the rest of the group that was then going in the Navy from other parts of the state, and then they moved us on up to Atlanta, and then from there we caught a train and went up to Bainbridge, Maryland.
And that's where you
that was boot camp.
What and that was, but where did you learn your rating? What were you trained to do in the Navy? And the war was on then. War was still going.
I was basically just a seaman. I mean, that was it.
You wasn't you didn't learn the aircraft.
Oh no, I didn't. I was strictly a seaman.
And then you were on a LCT.
LCT, right. LCT.
Then you went back to you went to California.
Well, of course, we went to California when we were on our way overseas. Of course, we finished the boot camp at Bainbridge, Maryland, and of course, we got our leave to come home. And of course, as I had told you, during the boot camp, why, of course, it's sort of an added deal. Why, of course, the man that headed up the band for the bass, he liked to write music, but he couldn't play a piano, and so he got me out of some duties and everything, and I was assigned for sort of temporary deals along the line to be able to go and play his songs for him. And then I had to qualify me as an instrument, so I played the cymbals.
Well, is that what you qualified as a musician?
No, that was just that one little phase in there. Because when I left there, well, I was strictly a seaman. We got to went across California and then on to Japan.
Where did you get on the LCT?
In Sasebo Harbor, Japan.
But how did you cross?
We went over on a converted Liberty ship, converted to a troop ship from a Liberty ship. And
you didn't go over on the LCT?
Oh no, the LCT were there. And of course, on the trip going over, of course, like I told you before, we, of course, I don't know what the information relative, we talked about Treasure Island. And I don't know if you've ever been to Treasure Island or not, but when I was through there, of course, Treasure Island, it was almost like a prison. Did you go to Treasure Island?
No.
And because what it was, of course, it was out in the bay there. But And we went there as sort of a staging area to get on board the troop ship. But then what it was, of course, everything was separated out, and all of the various little compounds, barracks and everything, we were in a gated, wired enclosure. That when we were in there, and it was all paved. In other words, when you got that far, you weren't turning around because you couldn't get out.
Now, the war was over then.
Yes, at Treasure Island, right. The war was over basically on the day that I was rolling into boot camp in Bainbridge, Maryland.
The Japanese surrender, that was an order.
Right, that's right. Right.
Well, okay, but the war was over. Well, but before that, did you have any idea what y'all were going to participate in the invasion of Japan?
Well, it would have been whatever come. Would I would have gotten assigned to be on the LCT if it was an invasion, would have been an unknown, because basically, as I said, I just qualified as a seaman. That was what they had to have. And of course, at that time, I had no profession or whatever, because I would not have been out of high school and gotten a job working anywhere. Of course, my only experience at that point would have been preparing payroll and some other things for the plantation.
You told me where your dad was. Your father worked on a...
Right. He was an overseer on the plantation.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you went over to Japan.
Right.
And the war had ended. And
The war had ended, right. But we did get into a little deal outside of San Francisco on the way over. Of course, a converted Liberty ship is not the biggest ship in the world. And so when we got outside of San Francisco, we got into a real, I don't know whether it was a typhoon deal or a storm or whatever, but anyway, what we were ordered to do was we had to go below deck, and we had to strap ourselves in our bunks. And the long and short of it was that we were in this storm, and the captain of the ship had been wired from San Francisco that we should turn around and come back in. And he had wired them back that he was afraid to try and turn the ship around for fear that we would capsize and that we would ride it out. And so we rode it out. And of course the storm was strong enough to where it buckled one of the plates on the ship. We rode it out, and that was a real experience, because when you're down in the hold of a ship and it's up and down and around and everything else, and the guys getting seasick.
Did you get seasick?
No, I was very fortunate. I had a strong constitution and didn't get seasick.
There you go. Well, did you have to pull in at Pearl Harbor for repairs?
No. We went straight on. When we left San Francisco, we were actually destined going to Okinawa.
And
that was our stop. We stopped in Naha, the harbor there. And when we got to Naha, well, of course, they had that typhoon. And beside the typhoon, well, of course, the Air Force and all had, Navy, Army, had sunk some ships of the Japanese there. So the harbor was full of sunken ships. So we did not actually pull into Naha. We stayed out in the Bay Area there and for any communication, it was just primarily, I think, getting supplies and things like that. But we didn't get off. We didn't get off the ship.
The fighting was over though.
Oh yes.
No.
Oh right. It was over.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that when you became a chaplain's assistant?
No, I was a chaplain's assistant, leaving out of San Francisco.
Oh,
Right. I got chosen, of course, and of course, primarily what I did there was I helped to run the little paper for the ship and played the piano for services. And then, of course, we had services on the deck of the ship. And of course, the deck of the ship wasn't really that wide, but for the piano part, I didn't have a piano. I had a little miniature pump organ. And so what I had to do was to do the pump. I had to pump the organ, pump it, and then play the little thing all at the same time while the ship is going like this.
who was on the ship? Mostly
It was Navy.
Navy.
Navy primarily, right. We may have had a few Marines on there, but it was primarily Navy. I don't believe we had any Army at all.
And you went on up and landed at Sasebo.
Sasebo also, right. Mm-hmm.
And then you went to Nagasaki.
Well, no, well, of course, actually, we were actually more or less stationed in Sasebo. And then we got the orders for going down to Nagasaki. Mm-hmm.
What were y'all supposed to be doing, looking at in Nagasaki, you remember?
Well, what primarily we were doing a lot of was, and we were actually repatriating some of the people that had been really over in, at that time, they were over in Korea, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so this was what we were doing. They would come in they would bring them on an LST, and we would take them off the LST and carry them over to the shore.
And these were Japanese?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, they were Japanese, right. Mm-hmm.
That's really what you were doing?
At that time, right. And of course, it was a little different duty. We didn't really have any problems because, of course, you had to anticipate problems. So we were armed with a machine gun and whatever to take care of, shall we say, any little incident that might arise from.
Did you have any incidents?
No, we didn't.
I think I asked you too, when you went on down to Nagasaki, mm-hmm. Was there any animosity, anywhere in Japan at that time? Or did y'all go ashore that much?
Well, when we were in Sasebo and Nagasaki and Kagoshima, that was down on the southern island of Kyushu. And I feel that, yes, there was still some hostilities in the area. We did not basically go ashore at that time without, usually in a group, whatever, and we were told to mind our P's and Q's and not get out of line and just to stay away from the women. This was the case because like in Sasebo, why, of course, they some of the men didn't believe all that they were told, and they found them with their throats cut up in the hills.
Ooh.
So that makes it believe. I was very.
Well, that Sasebo was an American base.
Oh yes, right, Sasebo.
But it's closed along.
Oh yeah.
It's not like the one.
See, like Sasebo was really, Japanese harbor. Of course, the U.S. had taken it over at that point, but it was strictly that time it was all U.S. Navy ships. wounds in there.
When you went down to Nagasaki, what was it like? Was it just what we think?
Well, of course, when we went into Nagasaki, it was, well, of course, when we pulled in, of course, you couldn't really tell a great deal. One of the primary things that happened in Nagasaki was that before the A-bomb, a lot of the napalms were dropped.
On Nagasaki?
Right, and of course this destroyed, because most of the houses were built out of the bamboo and things like that, and with those napalms, why, you know, they like a cinder. So that did a lot of destruction that you had at the time. Of course, that area, I had read through my look over here, and I had forgot that really that all that area was off limits for us. And so when we were we were working with the Marines there, and this one Marine, as I had told you, he had said that if there were any of us that would like to go through the area where the bomb was dropped, that he would be glad to take us through there. So we were actually able to, we got in an open Jeep. I'm 18 years old, and here we go. And of course, it was an experience that, of course, you can see all this area that's just completely leveled. And of course, one of the primary targets, of course, that I picked was the Mitsubishi aircraft factory that was in Nagasaki. And of course, this particular building, when we rode by it, it was like the steel girders looked like pretzels. I mean, that was how intense it was.
Did you see some people walking around there?
Not in that area, no. Not where the bomb had dropped. It was still strictly off limits at that point. See, this was in January.
The bomb was dropped in August.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they had not. I'm pretty sure that I'm right with that. For that where it was dropped. And now, of course, when you were back in Nagasaki proper and back to the ship and all, well, of course, you would see people, and of course, you would also see people that had been scarred by the bomb. I mean, you had people that still had their, their scars were showing, and not a pretty sight, but you had to go ahead and do what you had to do.
Did you have a job to do in Nagasaki?
Well, of course, I was on the LCT.
Yeah, I mean, but when you came ashore.
Oh no. All of our assignments were strictly on the LCT.
Was there any medical help set up there that you knew of?
I don't remember any as such that the American forces had. And I'm sure that with our base there that we had medical and everything, but I do not remember whether it actually serviced any of the Japanese in there or not. I would feel that probably at a later date, maybe.
Well, did they ever check you for radiation, Nelson?
Yes.
You were clear and all that?
Right, I had to, they come out with a directive. It's been about 10, 15 years ago now, I think. A directive that if you were in these areas and with between certain dates, then it said you needed to be checked out for radiation. And of course, and with the dates that they were with Nagasaki, why, I split it right down the middle. So, I went to, Lake City. That was, we were living in Brunswick then, and I felt like Lake City was a little bit closer than having to go all the way to Augusta. So I went to Lake City to be checked out. And I don't know whether I was the first one to be checked out or what. I know that when I got to Lake City, of course, when you get one of those VA hospitals, you know, they won't give you, when you, on the initial, you don't get an appointment, you just go sit and wait. And so when I finally got my number called, I got up there, and the young lady that was there, you know, doing a little interview and all that, when I had my little directive and all, well, she hadn't seen one of them before. And she just...
Is that typical?
Yeah, but not now with the VA. By the way, the VA hospital system now is ranked as some of the best hospitals in the United States.
Right.
It has been changed over the last 8 years.
She was wounded in the war.
Right.
And I had to go down there every so often because I'm
Where did you go, Lake City?
I've gone to Lake City, I've gone to Gainesville.
Gainesville. I've been to Gainesville long enough to get surgery with my eye.
Mm.
But anyway, so she had to get someone else to come in because she hadn't heard of this directive and didn't know anything. So anyway, they go back and start, I don't know what all, they had a little confab or call somebody or whatever. And anyway, when they come back, why they said that, you know, we'll go ahead and take care of you and get squared away. So immediately they set me up, and I went and talked and interviewed with one of the men, and we talked about when I was there, whereabouts and everything. Of course, I had my little diary that I had kept where I knew what day I went through there and everything. He was a little shocked at that, but I had it. And then they said, well, if you'll, you know, go back down the front desk while we have your various appointments set up. Well, I thought that probably that I would be going down and picking up all this paperwork to carry back home and come back in a couple of weeks or something like that. But what happened to me was that I got back down there, and they had all these things for me to do that day. I mean, they run me through there. You know, one entire deal, blood work, x-rays, I don't know what all that you can have done in that period of time, and they ran all those tests on me. So rather than having to wait while they did the entire thing. Of course, I did not get any kind of a report at the time, went back home, and of course then they notified me that, of course, that there was nothing that they had that showed up at that point.
Well, now it's Agent Orange. I get my quarterly report on Agent Orange, and I've been tested on that because I had it all over me in Vietnam.
Right.
How did you make it to the Army from the Navy?
I was drafted.
Well, no, let's get out of Nagasaki and then he'll get into that. Yeah, that's an interesting story with
It is, yeah.
Well, okay, you left, you couldn't have been that long over in Sasebo.
No, we were assigned in Sasebo, and of course we spent, I forget now, about several weeks or a month in Nagasaki. And of course that was an experience there because we, of course, there we were tied up right next to the dock, which was more or less an open dock, and we would have Japanese going, you know, back and forth along. But and the same thing, we were there. We got assigned to go down to Kagoshima for the same deal. And of course, Kagoshima had an active volcano.
Yeah, that's when you got the volcanic dust.
Right, and of course, in that volcanic, it was spewing that volcanic dust, and on that LCT, it just really made a mess. Because the stuff would get, you know, you try to wash it off, and it was just like, I don't know what you'd call it.
Talcum.
Talcum, really. I mean, just bad news. And then of course, those were in the Cayuga, the Sasebo. But then shall I go on to the
Well,
next?
how about suicide submarine?
Oh, that was in Sasebo Harbor. Now, I have no real witness deal on that. Of course, Sasebo Harbor was one where we had aircraft carriers, battleships, other destroyer, the bigger ships, plus we were there. And so it was, it was strictly Navy. And what happened, said one night, why, of course, one of the more hostile Japanese kamikaze guys was going to blow up one of the ships, and started out in a little suicide submarine. And of course, he didn't quite make it. They blew him out of the water. CNN wasn't there at that time.
That's the first time I've war was over several months.
Oh yes, right. But still, there was hostility
Yeah.
to a certain extent. And that's why they said, you gotta watch yourself. But other than that, and and hearing about some of the ones that got their throats cut up in the hills for hanky-panky, I suppose. Why?
Oh, we didn't hear anything about that.
No, that won't be on CNN. But those were the things that, and there was some, like down in Sasebo and all, I can't remember, I'd have to look it up. Had a couple of the, like it was in Nagasaki or Kagoshima one, we had two little, or Sasebo, we had two little Japanese boys that lived in that, of course, times were hard for them all at that time. And they just wanted to work for us, basically, to get food to eat and whatever. So they stayed actually on board the LCT with us and did the KP duty. I mean, we didn't put in the KP duty, whatever. And so I got to be friends with them. And they were just young men, and they weren't quite young men. They were still basically like teenagers. And so when we were getting ready to leave and decommission and all, why they wanted to come back to the States with me, and it really presented a real problem, because I was only a seaman, and no way could I work that. And not only that, I didn't know how somebody would even get started to do it. I knew there was more red tape than the law should allow. But anyway, they were just really wanting to come. And I've got the paperwork here, I'm assuming they gave to me, I still have it, where their parents gave permission for them to come with me back over to the United States. I'm assuming that's what it said. I've got the paper there, and it's in Japanese, so it might say, this guy's a...
And when you decommission the LCT, LT,
Right.
you just push the guns over the side.
Well, this is one of the things that, we had to decommission the LCTs. They were going to be sent back to the States. But as part of that, though, we had to get all of the equipment off of the LCT. I was supposed to lighten it up or whatever. So when you start doing all that, why, to strip it down, why, of course, we had the ACAT gun, those deals on the bow of the ship. And as I told you earlier, why, of course, those guns just, at that point, were just pushed over the side.
The war was over.
That's right. I mean, it was in.
Well, how did you get back to the States, on the board the LCT?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The LCT that I was on was loaded on the LST.
Oh.
And that was as I told you, that was the real thing because we pulled into the harbor there, and of course, then next to the LST, and of course, then there was this huge, gigantic crane. I mean, I don't know what brand, what it was, but anyway, it was humongous. And of course, then they attached cables all around on the LCT. And these cables, of course, we were all told at that point we were no longer on the side of the ship, that we hadn't gotten a place to go or whatever. And they told us to be sure and stay clear when they started pulling that ship out of the water, because there's such forces, and that if the cable, that the danger is that the cable will snap, and if that cable snaps, it's like a whip when it snaps, and they said you need to be out of the way. And so we were out of the way, and of course, when they started lifting the LCT out of the water, it was very, really something to see, because you read and studied in your science relative to how the suction and what is it, viscosity or whatever with water and everything, and as they're pulling the ship out, lifting it out of the water completely, it reached a point to where it was still in the water but not quite out, and you can just see those cables tightening like you wouldn't believe, and then all of a sudden it breaks loose in the water.
And then you came on back and you were discharged.
Well, no. I was assigned, I wasn't that fortunate at that point. One of the rumors that got started with us was that we did not get assigned to go to the fleet because the fleet didn't want us. They said that we were not used to the life that they had with the fleet, that we would never adapt to the discipline of the fleet. And so what they did with me was I got sent to Yokosuka. A lot of people call it Yokosuka, but it's really Yokosuka. And there, of course, I got assigned to, I was in charge of a ship service store. Until I actually left to come back to the States.
Aboard the...
No, this was on land.
Oh, this
on
right.
land, right. And of course, during that time, why I was able to go. Now, of course, up in that area, which of course, Yokosuka, you got Yokosuka, Yokohama, and Tokyo all up there. And of course, they were maybe a little different because we were allowed leave, in other words, to go ashore and whatever there. And so I was able to, during that time I was there, go to Tokyo, and also I went to Kamakura, which is where the big Buddha is, and you could see, of course, Fujiyama, Mount Fujiyama, and all those things. And of course, at the time I was there in Tokyo, I've got a picture over here. The big thing they had was the Ernie Powell Theater, and I don't know whether it's still in existence or not, but that was more or less the servicemen's sort of check-in point or whatever there. But got to go around and see all that. Now, I don't think I actually ate any meals in a Japanese restaurant or wherever, because they just pretty well warned us about, you don't, unless you know why. So I was very conservative on that end of it.
You came on, you headed on back to the States.
After the assignment there in Yokosuka, right, that's right. We got on board another troop ship and headed back to the States.
And you were discharged
Uh,
and,
in Jacksonville,
all right.
right. Now, I've got my certificates over here where I was initiated into the Neptunes of the Deep and all that.
The,
And of course,
you
this
went,
this is,
you went back, you went to college.
well, getting back to San Francisco first,
All right.
and like I tell people, in other words, with the servicemen with today, I feel that there were a lot of things that we went through and did that now why people would get sued about or whatever. But anyway, like our initiation into the Neptune of the Deep, that was one of those deals where you go ahead and you might say you do as you're told to do, and you bend over and get your butt hit, or and keep moving on. So I had that both going and coming. There's two different things that you get into, you gotta. I learned a long time ago. You need to. It's better for everybody if you just go ahead and go with the flow.
Yeah.
So when I had to kiss that hairy guy with the chest on the Neptune or whatever, why you smack it and move on. Because if you don't,
Well, you had several years now, and then you were drafted out of the Naval Reserve. You were in the Naval Reserve.
right, I had gone into the Naval Reserve, in active Naval Reserve, out of the Navy.
And you were in for 11 months and 29 days.
That's right.
And he was subject to the draft.
By one day?
Right, by one day. This was the draft board. I had, of course, finished college at the University of Georgia, and had gotten a job. I was working in Jacksonville, Florida, for Steel Test Dairies, and of course, I got this notice in the mail, and I couldn't believe it. And so I went up to Brunswick to check it out, and yes, you need a report. And wait a minute. So the company I was working with, they felt like that, they would go to bat for me and try, and of course, we worked to try to keep me from going. And I had only worked for them for about 6 months. And of course, the thing that was a real clincher, of course, was that the chairman of the draft board was an accountant. And he said that he didn't see any reason why I could not be replaced by a woman.
What year is this?
That would be 1950, 51, I think I looked to see over there. So then, of course, I got my notice then because they used, and so I was assigned, of course, here again. I went in strictly into the Army as a private E1, and of course, all the way up the line, when you're going, I went to Fort Jackson, and
You had to go back through basic.
oh yes, but on the way, all the way up to Fort Jackson, though, before I even got there, of course, we had to go by. Let me see, we went to Macon, I think, and I know we went to Atlanta, but every place I stopped there, they all looked at these papers and they couldn't believe that I was there, because they just, and so at that time, I think the bureau where they kept all the records and all was located in Missouri, I think.
St. Louis.
St. Louis, right, okay. And so they would all do whatever they had to do to check out in Missouri, and I would have to wait until they could check it out. and then I would go on to the next place. And then finally, I made it to Fort Jackson, and I was assigned to the infantry, and I went through all the infantry basic. About killed me, but,
How old were you?
let me see. I was only in my early 20s at that point. Let me see, I graduated 18.
Should be about 23.
Yeah.
Right,
23.
And then you went in, finance.
Well, no, I was in the infantry. I went through the complete infantry basic and everything. And of course, we of course went on to and got our assignments when we finished infantry basic, and we had our time to come home and all. And of course, this was the Korean War, and so we got our assignments. And of course, a lot of the men that were with me, they were assigned to go to Germany. Some of them drew going to Korea. And then out of the entire company that I was in, there were 2 of us, and we got assigned to what they call headquarters trust. And of course, headquarters trust is Trieste. Well, of course, at that point in time, I'd never heard of Trieste, and neither had a lot of other people heard about Trieste. And so we had to try to find out where we were going. And it took a while to finally find out that Trieste is an area located on the Italian, Yugoslav, Austrian border. And we were being assigned to what they call the Allied military government area there. 5,000 British troops and 5,000 American troops. And so that's where we were going.
Well, these mostly peacekeepers. I mean, what were the troops doing there?
Well, it was just, well, they were actually, well, you'd have to say that they were combat ready, because we actually had maneuvers and all on the Yugoslav border. And this was...
But Yugoslavia claimed Trieste,
Right.
and so there was a big battle within the United Nations on, and then finally it came up where Italy would get Trieste and Yugoslavia would get some of the highlands and stuff, inland and everything.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's what we were doing now. Of course, I think as I had told you earlier, I worked as a chaplain's assistant. Again, going on the ship over to Trieste. And of course, we took the scenic route, another troop ship. We went by way of Casablanca, Athens, Greece, Piraeus, up to Naples, back around, through to, down up the Adriatic to Trieste. And so as a result of that, I was still really in the infantry all the way. And of course, but the chaplain's assistant, we put on a show on the ship. We got together and did some entertaining, and so we did a 2 different shows. One for at that time the officers and civilian personnel on board going over, and then one for the regular troops. Well, of course, as that happened, well, of course, I played the piano, played solo and all, and of course, they had the program and all, and listed our name and where we were from and that. So anyway, one day we were all below it all, and of course, this sergeant comes running down a car, yelling my name, Westbrooks. What have you done? Westbrooks, what have you done? Well, of course, I knew that I hadn't really done anything. So anyway, he gets to me, he says, the captain of the ship wants to see you. So, well, I knew that I hadn't really done anything. So anyway, I went up and reported to the captain of the ship, went up to his quarters and all. I didn't know what was coming on. And when he opened the door to going in, it was, he had in his cabin for me, he had some fried chicken and some other goodies for me. And it so happened that he was from Columbus, Georgia, and saw my name in the program as being from Brunswick, and just wanted to be with somebody from Georgia. And so as a result, why I was able, he said, you know, anytime you want to come up, because he was very nice and haven't really, so anyway, during all this, well, of course, he got to know me and know that I had graduated from college and all this, and was thinking what a waste it was for me to be in the infantry instead of being in finance. And so he said he would see what he could do. Well, so I didn't really think any more about it, because I didn't want any disappointments. But when we got to Trieste, we had to go into this more or less early thing where they set you up where you're going, and all Sistiana is what it's called. And when I go into the interview there, the one that's doing the interviewing says that his first thing when he gets to me is just, why did Captain so-and-so recommend you so highly for finance? Well, of course, I told him what my experience has been and so forth, and said, well, that's fine. So anyway, so at that point, I got separated from the infantry and got assigned to finance. And not only did I get assigned to finance, I got a very good position. I was in the budget and fiscal department of Headquarters Trust. And we worked on compiling the budget for the command and other things, set up per diems and all.
You will have 2 years.
Yeah, not quite 2 years. But with all of that, why, of course, we did a show after we got there. We did a show at the theater there in Trieste. And we got money there, so that was another deal.
You got to see the world anyway.
The government's best. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I left off some things going to Trieste because we stopped off at a couple of places down. I said Casablanca, and there's another area down there. I can't think of the name of it now that we stopped off. But that was it. And of course, I worked there. And of course, we had our we had our shows, and we did everything like we should. But and I took all my leave while I was over there. I traveled around because at that time you could travel and go anywhere you wanted. So I got to travel all over Europe, and I did go to a finance school in Freiburg, Germany. And I suppose one of my claims to fame is that I went on a TDY. They set up a trip, and we went over to you read a little bit about it, I think, you read late bled Yugoslavia, and at this point that was where Tito was the one that was in power at that time, and that was his he had his castle, whatever you want to call it, out in the lake area. But my claim to fame was that I played Tommy Doyce's Boogie Woogie in a nightclub in late bled Yugoslavia.
Oh.
So that was that. And of course, I switched my cameras. I had a movie camera there. And of course, it was still, they were under strict military deal at that point. They had troops and all, and when we went through the border, why, they come on board and looking And when we got there, of course, we were able to get off and stay together, but I know that we were not supposed to take some pictures, I realized it, but I was taking one of the, I suppose one of the Yugoslav little regiments or groups or whatever, they're goose stepping down the road. And so I'm getting, I've got my little movie camera going, and I get a tap on my shoulder. Yes, sir. So I got a little bit of it though.
Then you came on back home, and you didn't stay in the reserves.
No, I didn't stay in there, but I did while I was there though. I mean, I took advantage of all of it.
Sure.
Being working in finance, push you in a little bit different position. So I was billeted downtown, and I took piano lessons, and I was able to practice at the USO. It was
Nelson, you've had an interesting experience.
right.
And that's about it, isn't it? On behalf of the American people, thank you for what you did.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.